I guess I'm a sound guy, first and foremost, and I think I always will be. I've been fascinated with sound for as long as I can remember. As a teenager, I would pore over audio magazines and drool over the ads for totally rad equipment that I could only dream of affording. While I was in high school, I built my own speakers and power amplifiers, and I hung out at hi-fi stores, bugging salespeople for demos of their loudest speakers. Eventually, my dream came true as I was able to build a career as a mixer and sound designer. Choosing audio gear for my recording studio was the best. Comparing specs, weighing price-performance ratios, assessing usefulness, utility, and of course the all-important cool factor. However, that all ended almost a decade ago, after years of denial when I finally accepted that my hearing was basically shot. I faked my way through the last few years of my career, discreetly wearing hearing aids, and soon the absolute joy I got shopping for audio equipment was firmly in the rearview mirror. And I've been grieving that loss ever since. Until recently, that is. You see, a couple weeks ago, I was assigned a surgery date to receive a cochlear implant, and I've decided to go through with the procedure. So once again, I get to review technical spec sheets, talk to users, and take myself back to school to make probably the most important decision about audio equipment in my entire life. After all, it's not like I can easily take a cochlear implant back to the dealer if I decide it's not up to the task. Choosing an implant manufacturer has actually a lot more in common with getting married than with equipping a recording studio. You know, the whole for better, for worse, and till death do us part thing. So how am I going to go about making that decision? Hi, I'm Vince Werner, and today I'm going to look at each of the 3 FDA-approved choices for cochlear implants in the United States, and I'll try to make sense of their various specifications, design philosophies, and other things that are going into my decision. My 3 choices are Advanced Bionics, Cochlear Limited, and Med-El. Now, before I go on, I have to tell you that your audiologist will tell you that there's really no wrong choice. All 3 are great and deliver good results. They tell me that it's a matter of personal choice. Personal choice? I mean, it's not like I've ever had an electronic hearing gizmo embedded in my head before. How am I supposed to know which is best for me? So I went on a mission to see if the whole "there is no wrong choice" thing is true. The first thing I did was to sign up for every mentor forum, Facebook group, and YouTube channel I could find to learn from the experience of actual users of each device. And what I found is that, yes, all 3 makers have loyal groups of users who are very happy with their choice. Each of them also have a few detractors. However, it appears that the vast majority of cochlear implant recipients, regardless of who made the device, experience a dramatic improvement in their speech recognition scores and reported quality of life. It's also true that the vast majority have only ever experienced an implant from the company that they chose. Direct comparisons exist, but they're extremely rare and are limited to people who have been reimplanted for various reasons and went with different systems a second time around. But even in most of those cases, they're comparing older technology from company A to newer technology from company B. So I guess what I'm saying is, when users tell you, "my implant is the best," you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. It takes a lot of reading between the lines and a lot of research to learn which are the things that actually do set each company apart and which of those things apply to your specific situation. At the end of the day, I guess it really is up to you to do your homework and decide which is best for you. It may be true that there is no wrong answer, but that won't stop most of us from dreaded moments of either FOMO or buyer's remorse. Before I make a decision and explain how I arrived at it, let's take a minute to meet each of the 3 makers who have devices approved by the FDA for sale in the United States, and basically everywhere else too. Cochlear Limited, based in Sydney, Australia, is the largest and oldest of them. Founder Graham A. Clark implanted the first multi-channel cochlear implant in 1978. And when I say largest, I'm referring to the fact that Cochlear Americas, as they're known here in the US where I am, has roughly 50% of global market share. Med-El was founded at around the same time, in 1977, by Dr. Ingemar Hochmer and her husband Edwin. Dr. Hochmer was a pioneer of the cochlear implant, and she still is the CEO of Med-El. although the first employees in commercial operation began in the early 90s. Med-El is the only one of these three companies that remains a privately held company. Advanced Bionics is at the other end of the privately held versus corporate conglomerate spectrum. They're headquartered in Valencia, California, but AB is wholly owned by Sonova Group of Switzerland. Sonova also owns the Sennheiser brand as well as Phonak, a leading maker of hearing aids. AB leverages those sister company relationships to good effect, which I'll get into later. When you dive into the technical stuff, that's where it can get overwhelming in a hurry. You may have seen a comprehensive PDF that compares the offerings in detail. You can download it from cochlearimplanthelp.com, which also has a ton of other useful information. I'll put a link in the description. The point I want to make here is that I personally don't think that this document necessarily is very helpful. Unless you're willing to dig in like a pre-med student during finals week, the numbers you see here can be actually quite confusing. Case in point, this is the electrode portion of a typical implant, the part that curls up inside of your cochlea. As you can see, it has tiny little wires that are hooked up to electrodes. And as you might imagine, these electrodes are what sends signals to your auditory nerve that your brain tries to turn into sound. These electrodes are what are going to replace the thousands of healthy hair cells that used to do that job in my left ear back when I was reading Stereo Review magazine during math class. You would think that more is better, right? So Med-El is the clear winner here, with Cochlear a close second and Advanced Bionics taking up the rear, right? Well, in the case of cochlear implants, it isn't really the number of electrodes that matters, it's what you do with them. And that's where channels come in. Channels refer to how many simultaneous signals of whatever type you can send to those electrodes. And here, Cochlear appears to have a firm lead with the same number of channels as electrodes, just like Advanced Bionics. And what is Med-El even doing with just 12 channels? But wait, what's this? The chart calls out that while Advanced Bionics may only have 16 actual channels, they have a whopping 120 virtual channels. That leaves everyone in the dust. What's going on here? Well, they're using a scheme called current steering, whereby a signal is sent to adjacent sets of electrodes at the same time, but with different levels of current. They claim that this, in effect, creates a virtual electrode that's stimulating the cochlea somewhere between where the two electrodes actually sit. The location of this stimulation depends on the ratio of the current being sent to those two adjacent electrodes, and voila, 120 virtual channels. Mic drop moment for Advanced Bionics, right? Well, over at Med-El, with their measly 12 channels, there's something interesting going on with how they're using their drivers. See, they're leaning on the fact that the timing of the stimulating pulses that reach your auditory nerve are as important as the exact location in your cochlea that gets stimulated. So, without getting into too much detail, they vary the rate of stimulation along with the frequency of the sound and claim what could be called a theoretical 250 channels. For some reason, that doesn't get called out like Advanced Bionics' 120 virtual channels, and that's one reason I think that relying too much on this chart can lead to confusion rather than clarity. The discussion on electrodes and channels makes for some interesting reading, but it reaches this conclusion. While it is tempting to say that each channel corresponds to one piano key, biology is a messy subject. Some cochlear implant users have many more pitch percepts than the number of channels, while others have fewer. Very few studies have been conducted to measure pitch discrimination, and all show a large range of results. The same is true for things like RF carrier and maximum stimulation rates. Advanced Bionics certainly looks strong here, but if you go into the paper linked in the footnotes, which makes for some pretty dense reading by the way, you'll find this gem. Although there has been a trend for all manufacturers to push for higher stimulation rates, there is little or no scientific evidence suggesting that higher rates produce better performance. This paper, however, was published 16 years ago, and I think we can assume that a lot more research has been published since then, and much more has been learned about how cochlear implants and our ears can work together to create something that's at least a little bit closer to natural hearing. Implant length is another interesting area of comparison. Med-El has the longest electrodes based on the thought that they can reach deeper into your cochlea to stimulate sound at lower frequencies. This theoretically creates a more natural sound and enhances the potential to enjoy music. Others shy away from such deep electrode implantation because it can cause trauma to the remaining hair cells and potentially ruin any residual natural hearing that the ear may have left. MED-EL counters this by pointing out that they have the thinnest electrodes and therefore avoid that trauma, preserving residual hearing, and they were recently given permission by the FDA to make exactly that claim. The good news is that every manufacturer's implant has capabilities that the sound processors haven't taken full advantage of yet. That means that the part that's going to be embedded in my head next month will probably continue to get way cooler in the future when I upgrade the part that will be on the outside of my head. So as you can see, there's a lot more going on under the hood that's difficult for the layperson to make sense of. Making a judgment based on specifications that you don't understand could lead you to the wrong conclusions. I'm pretty sure that there isn't anything that Cochlear, Advanced Bionics, or MED-EL is working on that the others don't know about. They're all doing amazing things. Some are just better than others at marketing those amazing things. So, which of the systems did I decide to go with when I have my surgery in a few weeks? Well, as I sit here, I'm actually not absolutely 100% sure. But by the time I publish the next video, I'll have my answer, and I'll share with you why it was such a tough decision, and why I hope it's the right answer for me, even if it isn't the right answer for you. Since I'm sure you wouldn't want to miss that, do yourself and me a favor by liking this video and hitting the subscribe button. Buying audio equipment was never this complicated before, and the decision has definitely never felt as important as it does right now. I hope you'll follow along as I figure it all out. Leave a comment if there's anything you'd like me to talk about along the way. So until next time, I'm Vince Werner, and I hope you keep on listening.